So it's been a year since I made a video on this topic, VR settings in Assetto Corsa. And the reason why I'm revisiting this is, over the course of the last year, of course, I wasn't settled with the presets that I shared with you guys. Um, I kept on researching. I ended up taking some time off from work actually, and then one of the days, it was probably like day 2, I was like, "Let me just do this," and then 48 hours later, I'm still there trying every setting. Um, I went through pretty much everything that could possibly be relevant to what I'm doing, um, and also even went through my own BIOS just to make sure that my own system, ran as optimally as it could. But as far as this game is considered, uh, it's worth a revisit. So in this video, we're going to go through each one of my presets. I have 3. We have one for 72 hertz, one for 90 hertz, one for 120 hertz on Quest 2. And if you just so happen to have, yeah, that's probably where my finger is probably going to go. Yeah. If you have if these specs or similar, maybe this is what you can come to expect as far as performance and just a result from these presets. Um, I think the best thing was actually just taking them one setting at a time. So we're going to go through just a good handful before I put the headset on and, give you some samples. But let's get it started. All right, I'm going to try and keep this as brief as I can. So, just like, if you watch the first sets of videos, we did 72 hertz, 90 hertz, 120 hertz with the Quest 2. And basically, I look at those as like my frame budget. Each one of those has a specific frame timing that I have to, the GPU has to deliver frames to the headset in that interval, or else you feel the stutter. And with 72 hertz, our cap is 13.89 milliseconds. 90, that's 11.11. And 120 is 8.33 milliseconds. So as long as we can deliver our frames on time or early, will give us a bit of headroom so that just in the off chance that we get spikes, inconsistent delivery, um, you know, all the other variables that can contribute to your GPU not being able to deliver on time, you give yourself room to handle that. Just think of yourself as, being tall in a small room. You're going to hit your head, and you can only go so high on your settings. Um, but if you maybe take a seat in the room, you don't have to worry about hitting your head on the ceiling anymore. And sometimes a lot of what we're doing here with optimization is just understanding what our limitations are and what the game needs and what our GPU needs in order to do it successfully. So it's a balancing act. And I painstakingly went through the process of trying to figure that out. It may vary for you, but at the very least, I think it's a good place to start. So, one last thing. Cool thing about this understanding is if you're delivering your frames well ahead of schedule, let's say you can deliver them in 7 milliseconds, you can then take those same settings, go into Oculus, go into 120 hertz, use the same resolution, and it still has to deliver frames within a specific interval of time. It's not asking more of your VRAM per se, it's asking more of your frame timing. So the window that you have to make sure that you get your frames on the conveyor belt and they're moving to the next stage of production is 8.33 seconds. So if you're delivering them under that, you have a chance to have something smoother reprojected into your headset. But if you're too close to the ceiling, you're not giving yourself enough room in order to, have a mistake every once in a while, because nothing's perfect. It's all machinery. And, some games like a modded Assetto Corsa, depending on where you end up, what map you're using, they're all optimized very differently. The mods you're using, everything that you're doing to the game is a variable that someone else might not have exactly the way you do. And then the gear that you're using is a variable. So I'm only doing the best that I can to help give people a starting ground to help make sense out of their settings. And I think that's the thing that I wished the most when I first started, because when I was using other people's stuff, even though I saw that they had what I had, I don't know if they understood why they were setting the things that they were doing and how they were affecting it, or all the important things that matter to even setting settings. So, without further ado, we're going to go get right into it. Okay, so I got my headset connected now. We'll start off at the 72 hertz. And just to make everything really simple, let's just use this as an example. We're going to start at our default recommended 1x render, and we'll see how that one plays out. I also have my Oculus debug tool open, which you'll find in your Oculus folder within the diagnostics and I think then support. I just made a shortcut for my desktop, and so as you can see, it goes to auto. We're going to disable that. And for the most part, I keep my encoding and encoding resolution width. I keep all that default. The headset knows what it needs. There are definitely bit rates that you can set if you feel like you're not getting something consistent. But that gets a little bit more trial and error. And in a game that is very trial and error from map to map and car to car, I like to just keep it at default. I'll do quality on link sharpening and then local dimming. I think no matter what, this is a tough video to make very short. Um, so I'm gonna do my best to just get right into it. Let's see. I don't really limit frame rate anymore. I want headset to get as many frames as it can, have it prepared as quickly as it can. For this, for our starters, let's start off with 2x MSA. If you start seeing shimmery kind of details in the distance, I would raise it to 4x. Shadows resolution, super important. That's probably going to be one of your heaviest settings. I think that this is a pretty decent place to be. You really start to feel it once you go past this. And for this, I'm also pretty moderate, more medium high here. And I find that 1 or 2 faces per frame is adequate for VR, especially when you're in cockpit view. This is a matter of pop in when you like, especially specifically if you're racing, you're online, and there's definitely a lot of people in track, and you would realistically see distant details, but all of a sudden, depending on how fast you are, you might see the farthest car pop in, pop out, depending on how far your rendering distance is, and that could break immersion. So for VR, I might have this a bit higher than I would for my monitor. I like keeping depth of field off. I'd keep that for instant replays only. Your mirrors, I'll keep these on the highest. I try to use 72 hertz as my largest budget for settings because the mark that I'm trying to hit with frame timing is about 13.89 seconds, which is more than enough to to have decent headroom on most of these maps and cars. I've been debating this number for some time. I know default is this, but I've always had like moments of like, damn, that shit's so bright. And then, there's moments where it's dark at night and it can be very finicky setting settings. The headset is definitely a different experience with brightness than your monitor or TV. Lately, I like keeping this at 0, but I would recommend messing around in between negative, negative zero point 0.5 and 0 and see what you like. Today, I think we're gonna experiment a little bit because I'm using the newest Patreon update, which I had been having issues, but found out that I had some weird Python apps that probably needed to be deleted. So we've cleaned up and we have new upscalers that were not in any of the previous versions. So this is where the settings may deviate. If you don't have this version, I'm sure that it would probably just default this setting to whatever upscaler is available. And I'm pretty sure I was not using the older one. I was probably using FSR2, which works fine. I have yet to try any of these in VR yet. I do have an NVIDIA GPU, but as of last night, trying this and all of these except for Snapdragon on the monitor, DLSS seemed to be the most expensive as far as FPS usage. So I may have to tweak some things when it comes to that. Um, it's a whole rabbit hole. I think 50 is a good place for you to start with sharpness. Um, and I think right now what we're gonna do for 72 hertz, just to lock in a preset for the end of the video, uh, we can mess around with these and see where we fall and see what's a good frame timing to use. And I think that this post processing anti-aliasing ends up being one of the nicer looking ones to use. If you need a little bit more performance boost, you can always use FXAA. For this one, I've upped the LODs a bit just for a little extra detail. You could always have them set straight up to 100 as the default. These are default. I kind of don't like to mess around with things like this. I've had weird experiences with shadows, clipping. Not really a big fan of all of that. I definitely like to have these on, but as you can see, this only works with high quality mirrors. This may vary. I don't know exactly when I'm driving when this exactly kicks in, you know? So I've had it set pretty low. No extra effects in VR, as you know. Our lighting, our particle effects. I've, if I remember correctly, I was definitely messing around percent by percent, just trying to squeeze out anything I can get. I'd say this is, yeah, smack dab in the middle. Smart shadows, I keep them at default because I've had some weird issues in VR with this. You mess around a little bit. I think this is a newer setting. I've been using pure gamma, but you're free to use any of those. I've never used that shit. But I usually cycle through all of them at some point, and I usually keep most things checked. Um, Again, they'll be in the preset. I'll drop the links for all of that stuff. It'll be Google Drive links. And in VR, this one is a interesting one that we'll experiment with today, so we can get a final what's best look single pass stereo. Kind of on the fence with it. I don't see a humongous difference in terms of what it looks like, but I know there is a difference in terms of the performance impact. So this is a good place to start. It's reasonable to have this active and in your video settings to set this to match it. But for today, we're going to have it off to start and we're going to toggle it back on to see the difference. And I'll make sure I have it on 4x. As you can see, we've got other settings there. There is no 2x in between. Actually, well, that's the weird thing about it. I guess I don't know how custom is supposed to work if they don't give you a chance to customize it, but that's a modded game for you, right? I like to keep this off. I try to disable all ASW. Basically, what that's going to do is in the moment that you're not hitting or you're like meeting your headroom, like hitting the ceiling, ASW will inject a frame um, just to kind of keep you going at a certain um, frame rate. And I feel like I get way more like stutters and jitters from having that shit. Um, I would say that's the source of a lot of people's problems in Quest 2 is um, being an Oculus debug tool and making sure that's disabled. Also, when you set these and you're in what do you call it? Um, you already got into PC Link. You can quit that Oculus debug tool and it will lock in for the session. The next time you quit, unplug your cord or leave PCVR and get back in, you'll have to toggle that ASW to enabled. Back to disabled every single time. I'm pretty sure there are like Oculus Trade Tool will allow you to set like presets, but I tried it and I was kind of like iffy on how it felt for me. I liked Oculus Debug Tool and maybe I was doing too much at once. This is where the tool that you use to get to that setting purely up to you. And I think that's about it for this screen. Everything else you'll see here. Um, Pretty much, you know, what we do. This is another one that was a groundbreaking moment. I keep this at 0. I take this shit off. This is checked. Um, I like to make sure I select my card. Again, it couldn't hurt, right? Especially if you have an integrated graphics chip. I don't know what the trigger is for to switch to certain things, but um, when I found that, I was like, damn, automatic. I wonder how that works. So yeah, that's pretty much what we got here. And why don't we figure out something to hop into? Um, I kind of wanted to give you guys like kind of like somewhat random, something that makes sense. Well, maybe not totally makes sense, but I'll throw a Noah Hezzy car on a track and be okay with that. I actually really don't like Sebring that much. But you know what? We might just do Sebring. Fuck it. Yeah. I think it's a manual. Is it a manual? It is a manual. And let's just do ideal conditions for now. We can do a separate little thing for weather before we switch. I want to give you guys like an idea just how it looks, how it runs, and I think it's important to be able to see those things. And one more thing before we get into that, your rendering mode. I like using Oculus Rift because it's an Oculus Quest. I try to keep the native runtime with it, but you can also use OpenVR and use Steam VR. Um, Now it really depends on what you're trying to do, but knowing with the Quest 2 that if you're going to use Steam VR, you're adding kind of like one extra step, and doing it in Oculus Rift, you kind of remove a step. And I'd like to think that efficiency is always a better way to deliver the frames than not. Of course, for games that, you know, you're in Steam VR and that's probably all you got, you probably have to do that. Um, I've also had some pretty decent experiences with Steam VR doing their Wi-Fi, their AirLink. Again, that also matters if you're Ethernetted in on your PC, how stable your connections are, how close you are to your router. But I like a wired connection. I'm a wire guy always. So we keep with Rift. And yeah, let's I think what we're doing is we're gonna do ideal conditions, and let us let's see if yeah, fuck it. I think for the sake of this shit, why don't we try something different, man? Why don't we get into something a little different? We'll go into pure LCS. Let's do that. And let's do this one. Let's see how this one plays out. Some of them might not work in VR and some of them do, but worth a shot. And when I get in there, we'll set up the rendering graph so you can see what the frame timing is. And one last thing that we will do, that I do, that I've noticed. Actually, you know what? I'll show you the difference between that as well. I have MSI Afterburner, and I'll do a little overclock tweak on my GPU, and I'd found a setting that actually increased my frame timing, and in some cases my FPS in a very noticeable way. And I wasn't getting any negative drawbacks. I didn't crash. I still have yet to crash. That was like 6 months ago. So uh, I'll show you all of the differences that I'm doing there. Um, and I think one extra little tip that I will share, and I'm really unsure how this works for other cards, but we're gonna we're gonna talk about it. I keep this off. If you have the NVIDIA app, I've lately been keeping this shit off. NVIDIA overlay, I'm done with it. If I want to know frame timing and my whatever, I'll have MSI Afterburner open, and I have yet to see any negative drawbacks from having this. I'll also remove the Steam overlay. That one is toggled off as well because I've definitely gotten glitches, and they're probably one and two of the most common issues that I have. Once I took those shits off, wow, a lot of things started acting way smoother. It's insane after 3 years. That's a huge win if you're having issues. Let's see. If you are like me on a 30 series card, I'm on a 3070, you may want to set different settings. And I had saw this on IG, and I had never seen this menu before. I'd never clicked into it, but I was like, wow, oh shit, that might be helpful. Um, in the case that you are actually running DLSS in this game with the new Patreon preset, this could perhaps help out because the settings do mention preset letters. I had no idea that there are different presets, right? Apparently preset K is best for 30 series cards. And knowing 30 series cards, we're frame gen is unsupported. And I usually use the game's setting for ray reconstruction. Um, I think if anything, recommended will auto a lot of this stuff. And I definitely noticed a huge difference. Um, I'm definitely pulling a lot more frames in games that I was kind of struggling with at times, and might help you too. It might even, be worth messing around with all the presets in all of your DLSS games, or I'm sure that there's probably something on a write up on the internet just on each one of these. So just a little something, something to add into this. We're gonna hop in. I was just letting my VR headset charge because it dies pretty quickly. And yeah, I think we'll do some tests and experiments, and that'll be the rest of the video. Okay, so we got a little discovery here. So for those other upscalers like DLSS, FSR2, FSR3, XESS, OptiScaler, extra effects needs to be on. Maybe we'll run a quick test later on that one just to see if it actually works, but I don't think it does. So in essence, these three are probably going to be the best. I would say FSR is going to be the best known for VR and AC. And if you have an NVIDIA card, you might benefit from this. But if you need maybe a little bit of a performance boost from this, you might get that. There may be some visual drawbacks from using this. I haven't tried it in VR, but we'll see how it goes. First, we'll try without upscaling. And yeah, let's confirm our path. And I'm thinking maybe we just rock with this car and this track for the whole test. Let's get it. First, I was like, don't tell me that shit's gonna crash immediately once I get in there. That is okay. Yeah, sometimes load-ins can be a bit violent, right? It happens. Um, okay. It's not terrible. I was messing around with the skybox earlier and I wasn't sure like how bright I needed that shit to be. It's definitely a little bit brighter. We can probably tweak that in um your filter settings. Yeah, we'll keep it grip just to keep these fucking things simple. Um, let's see. Yes. And the most important thing I want to have shown here is our render stats. As you can see, so that's the mark that we got to make sure we're doing. And this is what our settings are at. So we have just a little bit of headroom. And perhaps if we got into a Kuno's car, maybe that headroom would be different. I mean, as you can see, there's things going on in here, you know, but you can see it's relatively stable. This is the timing of delivering those frames. So I'm gonna probably the next one I'll probably like pop out and change the volume settings or audio output settings because I didn't set that shit properly. But let's take a look at our frame time. Yeah, that shit is bright. Hold on. We're gonna do some we're gonna do some stuff. Just if we're gonna be using this filter here, we're gonna make sure that it actually looks decent. Think they'll be able to adjust it in this. Yes. Let's see. Yeah. Should still work though. Brightness, let's take that down like right here. It's like half the brightness. Give it back a little bit. Okay. Let's hang on to that. We're not being blinded. Sometimes it's a little disconcerting to drive a vehicle minus sound. Can't hear your revs. But you can see sometimes there's like spikes. Ah, all right. You can see those little spikes coming up. What am I pointing at? Ridiculous. Um, so those are the ones that are going over our headroom. Now, for the most part, it's decent, but it's not laser smooth, you know? And that could also be the combination of what we have going on here. Um, could very well be that. I'm also not upscaling, not using any of those things right now. I'm not overclocking, but as you can see, the FPS is very stable, but that doesn't matter as much as the frame timing does. So I'm again also not trying very hard here. Um, so that's one demonstration right there. Let's hop out. Let's First place we want to go, I want to try upscaling. And let's hop right back in. And already I can feel a huge difference. So, yeah, it might be a little bit better, like a millisecond better. And what's also interesting is like I notice no visual drop off from having an upscaler on. I would say it's a little bit smoother. Let's speed up these tests, right? Cool. So we got a little bit of movement there, right? Let's also see how this is on ultra. And we'll let it do auto sharpness. Make sure I got some sound too. See. Cool. For how loud this shit's gonna be. It's a Saturday. It's fine. Okay. So we're doing the other FSR option. It scared the shit out of me, Loki. Loki shaking my floor. Of my neighbors downstairs. The ones next to me. So maybe a little bit more demanding than the other FSR. As you can see, we kind of went back up a millisecond. I mean, we are largely 2 seconds under the timing, but those spikes still concern me. So keep in mind, we're still sitting. Didn't really notice too much of a difference visually either with that. Let's see. Try an NVIDIA image scaling and see how that is. Add a touch more sharpness to it this time around. You can keep it at a very. You can over sharpen it apparently, but Let's see what its threshold is. Actually, it says, probably start it there. Fuck it. Keep it default. Okay, we'll try that. And it very well could be like, taking some other settings down just a little bit, give you some more headroom. So it hits right there. I feel like the headroom's a little bit better, but not a hell of a lot better. FSR, the first one that we tried, is still the one. And I kind of really want to show you guys like what a Kuno's car and track combination looks like compared to this. Just to show you like the variable of the same setting. Once we find what we like. I'm kind of inclined to keep it on FSR just to make sure we have like something that works really well. We just don't have to run it on best quality. Let's see what the difference is when we get back in there. Okay, so now you've seen those upscalers. And technically, I didn't really need that much sharpening on that. Didn't look that bad at all. I actually look pretty sharp. We go back to our ultra quality. It's a little bit more shimmery in the distance. That little thing I was telling you about, like when you can see, like if you're driving in the desert and you can see like, this is the video game version of it, but you can see we've dropped another millisecond. Oh, comes back up on it. I would say this has been the smoothest one so far. Whoops, my foot overlap. We're gonna crash. Yeah. I'm not like in my seating position. I'm like in testing position. Okay. But still a lot smoother in general. But we're just looking at a little bit more jaggies here. So that's the trade-off though. So we still get some spikes. I wonder if I can produce one. Okay, drop a little bit. Keep in mind these numbers when we start turning on other things, turning off other things. I think that's, I would love to keep the spikes all under there, but I don't lose anything more. Okay, so hmm, perhaps we could take these shits down. Give that a shot. I don't know if that would actually really count, just doing this by yourself, but let's, let's try that. Let's see if we can get rid of some of the shimmers, and then we'll try some single pass. See how that looks. Uh, let's go. Shimmery there. Okay. Okay. I think we're keeping a lot of it largely under, which is good. Okay, so what did I just do? Yes, the kind of lowering them. Felt like got less spikes there, unless I'm tripping. Okay, so let's see what raising this to 4x will do. That should be a pretty good. You'll see a difference there. Definitely a performance drain, but let's see if we can feel it. Definitely went over on some spikes. You can see things are kind of pretty under the. We definitely increased. A lot of the questions you'll ask yourself is, are the settings that I set worth the change, worth the performance gain or loss? What I might like, you might not like. And I think sometimes we kind of have to work on our expectations for what games really kind of look like in VR and how they actually perform. on your system. I think we're a little too close to the ceiling on that. But let's see how that now goes with single pass. So multi-pass stereo renders one eye at a time. Like it's doing that shit separately. Single pass is rendering both at the same time. Sorry if I fucked that explanation up. Yeah, there you go. Aha. So another caveat, as there's many with settings here. If we set this, we cannot use FSR. So we will take that off. And use our NVIDIA image scaling and start to compare and contrast our frame times. As we were in the 9s, the 10s, and the 11s, we were kind of around like high 9, 10s with this. So let's see how it is now. It looks a lot better. Why do you? It feels crisp. But our frame timing is not the greatest. Feel like picture looks pretty good. But you see, we're living at the ceiling. That could be the 4X. Let's mess around with. We did have it at best quality too, so why don't we see what happens? See what happens. Try it there. And I'm gonna keep it at balanced. And we try wide. Once we settle in on, what we want to do here, establishing a pretty good baseline for what our frame timing is each time. I feel like I lost only a little bit of quality. Not a lot. We've been kind of hovering around the same percentages though. So we did get lower than the last time. We didn't see 12s. Kind of stayed in the 10s there. A little bit better. I'm willing to leave that. But let's also see what it looks like without. Aha, without. Let's go. Definitely its sharpest. But we're gonna pay for that living at the ceiling here. So far it's okay. But this looks great. Got a little hitch, little tiny. Whoops. Just blew out the engine. But working a little harder. Probably the hardest out of all of them. And I think you can kind of still feels good. Like it's livable. You can definitely live with it. But you might need more than just that. Guess we were only late one time. I just don't like spikes. Good to note. Just all those other settings, all those other we were maybe the issues are. Okay. We this one looks the best though, so it really does. It's actually kind of interesting. Single pass stereo actually looked pretty damn good. Okay, so we're gonna throw wide on there. I mean, we're doing all the tests. We're documenting. So if you were ever curious about what it does, this is your video. We're already having issues with delivering on time. So wide might give you a much more higher fidelity image, but you're gonna pay handsomely for it. Look horrible though, but you do start to feel the chops at times. And in VR, it could be very sensitive to like have instability like that. So it makes it very hard to be in it for long stints. Yeah, we're over budget there. Yep, see? There you go. Big spike. And that's what's gonna happen. You don't want to feel those things. So, but let's look at what narrow looks like. Is it too narrow? We shall find out. A narrow helped us keep it under budget a bit. Much smaller spikes. But we're still kind of up there. So by using 72 hertz as the example, I think you can already kind of see like at 90 hertz, 120 hertz, settings like this, they're not going to work out for you. You got to compete with that. You got to compete with your video card, the thing producing the results. The narrow don't look bad. So I'm not against any of it. Come on, man. Car, I don't know what car, like, I don't know. He ain't got no wings, so. Anyways, that was weird. Um, um, yeah, we're gonna lose on that one. That one's not gonna look good. We can't afford that, definitely, with the settings that we have going on. I kind of want to preserve those settings. So let us see if we're gonna go ahead and yes, let's try ourselves a little overclock. Got my preset on here. So you can see what I've had set. Plus 38, plus 125 on the mem clock. Going up to 107 here. I'm keeping my temp limit at 87. I usually am like around 80 to 83. It's been pretty good. So, that being said, remember we were around the 11s with that. So let's see if we get a little bit better with this. See if we can improve our stats. Our biggest question here. I give you guys a better preset, and as you can see, we're pretty stable, but I want to give more room without losing too much. All right, let's see. And again, we're gonna see this, and then I'm gonna throw a Kunos car and track combo just to show you. So, it did not help us here. Making things unstable. Definitely a little clippy. Yeah, we're over our budget. Enough to start feeling that. And that's the proof right there. Sometimes overclocking doesn't help you. There you go. Nice big spike. Okay. So we're taking that shit off. And sometimes I don't really run it. I don't really run it like that. It might even help me just with regular monitor, because that's what I was testing and I was seeing the differences. I was actually recording all of the stats and it's like, okay, I can see the difference. All right, we'll rewrite that. Okay. Let's try that same thing. With a Kunos vehicle. Find one sin. Really? Okay. Pick the 86 drift because that's fun. You know what? Fuck it. We're gonna actually be on our track because there's no real mountain courses. It's not close enough to me. That is the problem. Damn it. I didn't want that. Who knows? Really not have tags for Kunos? God damn. I just want to get the thing. Categories. Yes, there is. Shit. Want something like fun on a track real quick. All right, cool. There you go. Get rid of that entry. Okay. Let's get our now let's see how this will do. Took the okay. Did all that. We're not overclocking. Regular Kunos car and track with all the other settings we've set. Let's see if we can take it down. As you can see, what a big difference that is, right? But it has its moments. It's a little spiky. But I would say consistently it is well under what we, that's kind of a better range for us to be in. Like, I'd rather it be in like under 10 than over 10. So, with that being said, you can kind of get an idea of what you have in store. Sometimes a preset may have to take a little tweak here and there, depending on if you really need to get on a car, get a car and track on a specific place. And then in general, you know, I would say certain things online would be okay. You're probably gonna have trouble with no hesi, like big time. Like you're gonna be like 30 frames per second trying to use this preset. But that's why I have others. So, but you can kind of see where we're at with it and what line we're trying to stay under. Okay, so we're going to do another rando, and I use the no hesi car as an example, not just because it was like the next up in line, but because there's usually a lot of shit going on in those cars. So um, you're going to end up having to pay for it in some way, shape, or form. I want to know if this is this the one. Oh yeah, I think I tweaked the transmission on this car because whoever made this, I don't know if they understand transmissions or whatever, but the gearing was so bad. Okay, it's not a no hesi car though, that's for sure. Try this just to see if it's gonna tolerate it or not. And before we get in there, I'll outline like places where we're going to start to pull away from if you wanted to tweak a certain set of settings. We're going to start here and take that down to quality. Um, might even, well, maybe 2x on the MSA on the video side, i- if you have to drop something. But for the most part, I'm kind of where I want to be with these settings, and I would just tweak from here and also from here. So we found a good picture with single pass. It might be okay for us to drop the resolution down here. So those are options that you have. I'm not going to go into the other ones too much because, as you can see, in general, it's going to be very much different combinations of these settings, adjustments, and I think those are going to be largely dependent on just making sure that we hit those frames. Um, yeah, because this is already a long ass video. I'm already tired. um, let's see. Yeah, let's just hop in that. Let's just see what it is. Yo, gonna set anything different. Where did it go? Don't look at that, right? See, that's the frame timing that we want to be around. See how big the variance is between places and maps and cars. It's humongous. You can't really just rely on one set of settings, and that's why I try to like shoot for some level of headroom. So there's moments like, okay, like I can actually. Damn, did I fuck this car up too? Yeah, I think I gotta look at the gearing on this one too. I don't know if I tested it after I tweaked it again, but it was worse than this. Maybe I just fucking get rid of this car. Somebody's had to have made a better IPLG from at this point. But you can see like we've got headroom. So that works out for us. You know what? I just want to demonstrate some shit real quick. Since we found something that's almost right there, right? Let's just go down to 120 and I'll show you the difference. It won't change anything about this. It's just the time that you need to deliver the frames in is much quicker. That's the only difference. So same res, all of that. And the other difference is that the headset can't display more than those frames. So let's see. shit back in. Okay, let's see how this one goes. You see the difference? You see what we have to hit? And you see how I didn't change any of my preset. And I don't really have to go to any other of the past maps to really show you what that is, because I already showed you what it was like hitting the ceiling at 72 hertz. But the fact that we were pulling so many frames on this map, or sorry, pulling a good frame timing on this map, we're very close within range to stay, you know, in the ceiling here. Which means that the settings that I had for 120 hertz, as you can see, they're dropping some of the other stuff. So, you know, you can expect 5-second delivery times, that kind of shit. This car sucks ass, bro. Like, I fucking hate this shit, bro. But you get the idea, right? We didn't quite get to 20, but it wasn't horrific. So at times you're going to be able to get away with the things that you want to do on 120 using a 72 hertz quality kind of, you've got, using a setting where you're like, I've got more headroom than at 120. Some maps you might be able to really deliver those frames quicker. So, but just to kind of like hit the point home, I guess, even more, we'll go somewhere else. And this might be a smaller map. Touch anything else. Actually, you know what? Damn. I always lie to myself. Check something real quick. That's the funny thing. Cause I changed my shit real quick. I didn't go out of ASW. Damn. Now I want to go back to that last one real quick. Just to show you the difference. Unfortunately, one last time for this horrific car. So we can preserve some integrity on the test. Okay, so ASW's back off. You remember what we were doing. We were hovering around the top. See a hitch right there, huh? So ASW, I guess, in hopes will help to make some things smoother. But sometimes the drawback is jitters and latency. But sometimes without it, you can get those jitters, stutters. I would say more stutters than jitters. VR people know what I'm talking about. Like jitters like happen when you're kind of like when you move your head and like shit just gets so unstable. And the stutters would be like, you could be like pretty still here and like just see like a frame skip in a sec, and then, you know. You could say we're living on the ceiling with that just as well. So let's say living on the ceiling with different consequences than ASW. So, but we had a different we had different minimums. We were at 77 with ASW, and ASW will try to force like 60. So interesting. But yeah, that is in a nutshell the idea of the tweaks that I've been working on, and just an example of just how they work. Um, in general, I think part of this video also really shows just how variable a modded game really is. Gone through all these settings. Um, Results may vary, obviously, more so than in any other game that you're going to play. And the goal with a preset and me giving one out is trying to find a good balance and a kind of a platform for you to tweak from. And we're not all going to share the same exact system. So that's the most difficult part about making anything for this game is, you know, I have to tell people, hey, like this is what I have. Like I'm setting it up for people who have very similar type systems. And keep in mind, if you don't have those things, if you have things that don't perform that way, whether they're better or worse, then maybe you can give yourself a little bit more room to go up or go down. That's all that is. And now you can kind of understand what you're looking for. So you're not like, well, I set this, but I don't really know what I'm doing. It still says I'm getting 72. But no, the point and the most important thing with VR in your headset is the frame timing. It's not the FPS. FPS is great, no, you know, but um for example, I can limit the FPS down to 60 FPS and have better frame timing than me having worse frame timing and getting the same FPS. And we saw that. We didn't even need to see me cap the frames just to show you that, hey, that could be smooth too. You just have to have better frame timing. And that's really the thing that I was missing out on for a while, is understanding frame timing completely. So this is it. This is how you should look at it. And I think that kind of solves a lot of the mysteries behind how this game operates in VR, and in general. You can kind of take that understanding to other places as well. You know what the ceiling looks like, and you know what you need to, you got to sacrifice sometimes. You can't have it all. We don't all have 50/90s, you know. It's just when you're at that level, then, you know, everything is, you know, everything at that point. You can max out all you want. Um, but for us, you know, we're gonna have some presets. Um, I think that's all I really need here. Feel free to drop questions, and I'm sure that if I think of anything to add, I probably should just make another video of it. But yeah, I think this should really kind of solve some stuff, make some stuff better. I'm over here pointing at the wrong thing. All right.